So I got a really cool video today. Let's let him introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Daniel Barnes. I'm a writer and narrative designer, and I'm writing Scrapnik Island for the IDW Sonic the Hedgehog comics.
So first, I do want to congratulate you on getting to do this miniseries before you were even brought onto the IDW team. I'd seen some of your fan works relating to Sonic, some of which I do want to hop back to talk about, but it was awesome to hear that you were getting to write stuff for the comics.
Yeah, it's a thank you. It's a bit of a dream come true. I've loved Sonic my whole life, and I think about him every day. And so to be able to actually work on him in an official capacity, it's pretty surreal, I gotta say.
So, first, since I do see that people ask this question of a lot of different content creators who do Sonic stuff, I want to ask when and how did you get into Sonic, and how big of an influence has the series had on you?
Oh, massive influence. I got into Sonic. I think I want to say I was like 4 years old, and my dad took me to my aunt's house, and my older cousin owned a Sega Genesis, and he had Sonic 3 Knuckles and Sonic 1, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I became obsessed. And then my mom took me to the video store, and they had all the old Sonic cartoons on VHS, and just kind of just inhaled all of it when I was a kid immediately, and he's never left my mind since. And yeah, I'd say he absolutely has kind of an influence in everything creatively that I enjoy. He's a cool blend between like old Mickey Mouse cartoons and like anime and all that stuff, which I would argue he was probably a gateway into like anime and stuff like that for me, because all of that, like, I think I definitely watched like the Sonic OVA before Dragon Ball and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned some it being a gateway to other things, and I went back and read some of your older work and did notice some references to other material. So just out of curiosity, like what writers or other big pieces of media would you say have also influenced your writing style?
It's absolutely I'd say Jeff Smith from Bone. That's like my favorite comic of all time, American comic anyway. Lots of different manga creators, namely like Akira Toriyama, which is like the typical answer. You know, oh goodness, Ian Flynn actually is massive, because I mean, of course, because I read the Sonic comics, but he had these back in the day. He had these Bumble King forums that he ran, and when he was working at Archie and doing all that stuff, and he was really cool about answering questions. And the thing that really helped me was he would post scripts for the Archie books that he wrote, and I had the books physically, so I essentially learned how to write comics by reading the comic and cross-referencing it with the scripts he would publicly post, and kind of reverse engineering how to like format and write a comic book script that way. And that's he's basically like responsible for me like becoming a comic book writer. And yeah, and Scott Pilgrim, I love Scott Pilgrim a lot also.
Yeah, that is really cool. I didn't. I know. I guess Bumble King forms a bit before I was really active on the internet, but that's really cool. I didn't know he posted those up like that.
Oh yeah, he would just put out little Word documents, and it's amazing. And my actual script formatting to this day imitates how he
And because you've been working on IDW, have you gotten to
formats his
talking to
script.
Flynn at all?
Yeah, he's a super busy guy, but he's we have a little chat that we all talk in, and he's present sometimes, and we talk and joke around occasionally. But yeah, he's super busy all the time,
Yeah.
so not very frequently.
Yeah. Well, it must be cool to talk to him, though. Something I've noticed is that in your story, for the 2022 Sonic Annual, it focuses on Gemrel and Omega and has a visual nod to Transformers. Your upcoming Scrapnik Island focuses on an island of abandoned Eggman robots. And when I was reading the Black Mage, I noticed a reference to Gundam. Would it be fair to say you have an affinity for mechas and robotic characters?
Oh yeah, I love robots a lot. I love Transformers. I love Gundam. I love stories about robots who are becoming they're becoming more human. They're becoming more like people. And they're having I like my angsty existential robot stuff. I love Evangelion, so
Hmm.
that's definitely fair to say, I think.
So it's is it what's specifically appealing? Is it just like the angsty, or just anything specific that you think draws you to them?
I think it's just, well, I mean, robots are just cool, man.
Yeah.
I think robots are awesome, and just that married with the implications of what it really means to be a person. and to really grow, because robots are kind of like they're often depicted kind of like us, but like in more and more in their infancy and self-actualization. So I just think stuff like that is just really inherently compelling. Like, I don't know if you ever read the Archie Mega Man comics; they really talk about stuff like that also, and I gobble it up. I love it.
Haven't read them because weirdly I'm not big into Mega Man despite everything else. But I
Well,
need
if
to
you're
read
if
them.
you're if you're a fan of Ian Flynn, I highly recommend reading them because he writes the hell out of them. So
Yeah.
they're really good. Even if you don't like Mega Man, so
I'll definitely have to give them a look. I know I have to at some point because people keep asking for the Mega Man crossover, and I'm like, I read the Sonic side of it. Um, but other question I wanted to ask. So it's been publicly announced at this point we're getting Mecha Knuckles and Mecha Sonic in Scrapnik Island. Mecha Sonic is of course pretty popular in fandom despite not having a lot of appearances, but Mecha Knuckles is kind of an obscure pull. What made you want to bring these characters back?
because they're obscure, the story really deals with these really like eclectic like robots. I feel like um the robots we see in Sonic a lot, especially recently, are kind of, I don't want to say samey, but they're very familiar. We're kind of used to the Motobug, the Buzz Bomber. You see that stuff a lot. And we see Metal Sonic is arguably my favorite Sonic character, but we see him all the time. So I just really wanted to really deep dive into to some weirder robots that you really don't see. And that's kind of like, because the whole point of the story is it's a trash island. It's stuff that's discarded and stuff you haven't seen in a long time. I know some people thought that like, some people assumed that I wanted to use Metal Knuckles from like Sonic R, and they made me do Mecha Knuckles, but that's not the case. I chose Mecha Knuckles from the start because he's really obscure and weird and hasn't been in anything for 20 years. So
And I know you can't say much, but can we expect any other obscure pulls or references or characters that are the characters you maybe wanted to use but you weren't allowed to or you couldn't find space for?
oh, you'll just have to read the story, my friend. It's the three confirmed characters are uh Mecha Sonic, Mecha Knuckles, and E117 Sigma, who's an original character actually. So that was really fun also.
Yeah. And it's very clear you have like a great love for the Sonic franchise in many aspects. So I want to talk about in 2020 after you'd already released the Black Mage, and I think issue one of Aggretsuko had already come out. You put out a Sonic the Animated Series pitch Bible. Can you take me a little bit through the creative process behind that?
Oh yeah, and that was just basically, I think the pandemic had just started. I was holed up in my house with my parents, and I was going a bit stir crazy, and it possessed me to just. I really like making pitch documents and pitch decks. I really like getting people excited for an idea or a concept. Um, and I had just got done at Academy of Art University, and one of my instructors there, who we're still friends to this day, he's really cool. He worked in the animation department, and he essentially just kind of empowered me. He wanted me to have a really cool portfolio piece, so he basically kind of like financially support. Like, he commissioned all this stuff for me to help me make this pitch deck. And so I just spent like months working with really cool artists and coming up with ideas and just kind of like vomiting out everything I'd like to ideally see in a Sonic cartoon at that time. Just going through, I very much, when as a kid, I loved instruction manuals for video games. Like, you'd go and open them up and you'd get the pictures and the story and the inner workings of the game. And that's how I view pitch documents. I like to format them like an instruction booklet to a video game, which I think is kind of evident if you look at my Sonic pitch deck.
Yeah, like it's got the rectangular shape to it.
Yeah, it just feels like a really cool, like, little pamphlet you look through. And I just I don't know. It just came over me, and I wrote the whole thing. And funnily enough, I posted it online, and it's what got me my literary agent. So I'm not complaining. Like, she
Wow.
saw me post that, and she's like, "I would like to represent you," and so it worked out.
That's
Sonic
awesome.
provides.
So another question, because I've seen some people wonder about this, because now Sonic Prime hadn't been announced till the end of 2020, but leaks are always coming out. Did you know that there was already a Sonic show in development when you were doing that?
I assumed there was one, but I didn't know about it. I wanted to make one and put it out there, and it really was just a portfolio piece. And hopefully, it was like, oh, if someone is making a Sonic cartoon, maybe they'll see that I made this and be like, maybe we should hire that guy to help write on the cartoon or something. So I just wanted to put it out there. I had no idea about Prime at the time, though.
Ah. And you said it got you your literary agent, so would you say that's also played a big part in you getting to be brought onto IDW?
Oh, I'd say I say the literary agent especially. It's hard. It's really interesting because David and Riley, who are the editors on Sonic, I think we were mutuals for a while on Twitter, and they were aware of me. They knew I liked Sonic a lot. I'd spoken with them before. I think that I'm coming to find out that if you're on Twitter at all and you like Sonic, you kind of just end up bumping into me in some way, usually against your will, but it happens. But I think they had known about me for a while, and then I got my agent, and I just told her, I was like, "Hey, I would really like to write for Sonic. Do you know anybody at IDW? Can you just like put in the good word for me?" And she's like, "Yeah, of course. I got somebody over there." And like a week later, yeah, David and Riley reached out. They're like, "Hey, do you want to? We're doing this annual. Do you want to write pitch a story for it?" And the rest is history.
That's really cool. So I want to jump back to some other fan projects you worked on. In 2013, you worked on a Mario fan comic for I think a bit. I misspoke. I'm sorry. I think it was partially inspired by the Archie pitch that didn't get picked up. Being that's the earliest work you have listed, can you take me a little bit through the creative process you had on that?
Oh, that was back when I was in. I don't know if you know this, but I was in the Navy for 4 years, and so when I was doing that, I just really needed a creative outlet. It really wasn't inspired by the Archie pitch. It just it was inspired by my love of Archie Sonic, and so they just kind of happened to really overlap in that way. But yeah, I was able to commission like Matt Herms. He colored a couple of covers for me, and that was really kind of my comics writing boot camp for myself really, because like I had written little comics here and there when I was younger, but that Mario comic was the first like organized concerted effort for me to actually write something for an artist, have them produce it, all of that. And I just really went through the paces of kind of figuring out what to do and what not to do when writing a comic for real. And it was wild. I worked with James Man the Reginald is his username, and Earth Gui is her username. And it was crazy back when DeviantArt was still like huge. I like was on there. I approached them. I told them what my idea was, and what really is the primary source of inspiration was I don't know if you know about Super Mario Adventures. It was an old comic in Nintendo Power magazine from the 90s, and it's been collected by Viz Media like in the last few years, and it's really 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 good. It still holds up to this day. It's a really cool Mario comic. And my comic is called New Super Mario Adventures, so clearly that was like the inspiration, right? And so yeah, I collaborated with them, and I had a bunch of extra income at that time, so I basically commissioned them. I was commissioning them to do the art and the colors for me. um, we were on Smack Jeeves at the time, which was a big webcomic hub. I don't think it exists anymore. Um, and I was like paying for I paid my buddy who's a web designer to make the website. So I just had all this income. It was me, this guy who really likes Mario and wanted to write a comic with extra money, like paying a bunch of his friends to help him make a Mario web comic. And it was cool. We were in Nintendo Force magazine. I ended up approaching them, and they gave us a spot in that magazine. We had an article on Kotaku. That was cool. Yeah, it got some traction. I still get people who approach me like, "Oh man, you wrote that comic?" To this day, which is funny. And that comic is God. It's almost 10 years old. Wow, what the hell? So it was a great experience. It's invaluable. I learned how to basically write a comic by making it. So
Is Mario a character you'd be interested in writing again?
I would love to. Oh my God, I would love Mario and Sonic are my guys. I would love to write a Mario story that's in some capacity. Maybe the license will get picked up. I'm hoping, like, my hope is that the movie does well and it makes Nintendo open up with the license, and like maybe a publisher, preferably IDW, gets a hold of Mario. Man, it would be really cool on one hand. On the other hand, I kind of low key feel like working with Nintendo as a license holder would be a nightmare, but who knows? Maybe they'd be really cool. I have no idea. I feel like they'd be really specific about a lot of stuff when it comes to Mario, though. So,
And just for like artists who kind of like also want to get into the industry, would you say running a web comic is also a good step in doing that?
I'd say it's definitely a good viable option. I think the best thing anyone can do is make stuff and finish it and put yourself out there. Don't just A lot of people get caught up on making some kind of opus, like I'm going to make my 100 or 300 page thing, and it's going to be like bim bum but like nobody cares about that when you're starting off. Just make something and finish it. Usually, short stories are the best thing to do. Like even with my Mario comic, I think I was way too ambitious with it. If I was to redo it now, I would have reined it in a lot more and focused it a lot more. But yeah, just make something focused and finish it and put it out there. And because that's what really shows editors and other creatives that you have what it takes is that you finished a project and you stuck to it. You know.
And then 6 years after that, in 2019, you put out the Black Mage with DJ Kirkland doing art through Oni Press. Can you tell me a bit about the creative process and development of that project?
Yeah, that was my first professional written work, and it was so back in I had just gotten out of the Navy in 2015, and I moved back home, and I was going to go to Academy of Art in the fall of 2015, but for the time I was back, it was spring. I was in California with my parents, and I was working at I was working at Walmart, and I remember I was thinking about like I was really waffling on, man, should I get out of the Navy right now or should I like stay in? Because I'm kind of used to it. Because I hate the Navy, I hated it, but I'd gotten so used to it and like quote unquote good at it that it was like, man, maybe I should just keep doing this. But all the while, like I was saying, when I was in the Navy, I needed a creative outlet, so I was always daydreaming and writing up stuff. And one of them was coming up with Black Mage and honing that. I'd come up with the kernel of what Black Mage was in high school when I graduated, and kind of just held that the entire time for like the whole like decade. And so I was thinking it up and writing the pitch up in the Navy. And in my free time when I had leave in the Navy, that's when I really started getting into the Comic Con scene. I used to go to a bunch of cons with my buddies and we'd visit. And that's when I really got swept up in the culture and really wanting to write a comic book professionally. And that's when I started like looking up how to do a pitch. I started coming up with all these crazy ideas just in my free time, sharing it with friends online. And I got out. So fast forward back to the future, I'd gotten out of the Navy. I'm at Walmart questioning if I should have gotten out or not. And like 1 month in, my buddy is like, "Hey, dude, you know that Black Mage idea you had? Dude, so Oni Press is doing an open submission program, which was unprecedented at the time. And they were just like, yes, anybody who has an idea for a comic can go to this website. They can, we're looking for this, and this. And that might actually be a valuable resource to people now if that page still exists somewhere, maybe in the Wayback Machine. And we're looking for this, and this. And all the editors like said a little bit. And they're like, this is the deadline. This is where you submit it. Bada bing, bada boom. And so I got to work for 2 months writing sample pages, writing the whole document up. I commissioned an artist to do the sample pages artwork for me, and I got it together, made it look nice and good. I submitted it, and then I kept working at Walmart. And then like a month later, they just called me and they were like, "Hey Daniel, this is Oni Press. We really like your pitch. We want to make a comic with you." And it was crazy. The rest was history. And like DJ, I graduated from SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design, with a sequential art major, and he had been doing the illustration and con scene for a hot minute. And he was going to cons, he was networking, and Oni Princess, who linked me up with them, they were like, "We have this. This is a really cool idea. We have the perfect artist for it." And so they approached. Was it at PAX? Was it at Emeralds? I can't remember which con it was, but they approached DJ's booth and said, "Yeah, we want to make this comic with Daniel Barnes." Bum bum bum, and they linked us up, and yeah, and that was it. And we made a comic, and it was really cool.
And it ends on a bit of a more of like a continuing adventures vibes. Any chance we're ever going to get the Black Mage 2, or do you feel like you said everything you wanted to say with that world?
I would like to make a follow up, but I don't know if you've seen. There's a lot of awful stuff going on with Oni Press right now, and so it's all up in the air. We're trying to figure it out, but I don't know yet. But yeah, Oni Press is, yeah. If you look them up, they have this really they're the people who own them have been really screwing them up. It's very much a Discovery Warner Brothers situation on a much smaller scale at a comic book publisher. It's pretty crazy.
Ah. And how quickly did Oni Press approach you after you released Black Mage to write some issues of Aggretsuko?
Like it came out. October is when Black Mage came out, I think, October 2019. And then in November, they were like, "Hey, we got the Aggretsuko license. We liked working with you, and you like anime. Would you like to write some issues?" And I was like, "Of course I would." And so I wrote a couple of issues for them, like immediately. I
And
already had that connection.
yeah, and with Aggretsuko being a Sanrio character and Sega and Sanrio having a working relationship, did it already feel like you were closing in to getting to work on Sonic?
I did not know Sega and Sanrio had a close relationship.
They do like cross promotional stuff, but like just a working relationship.
Oh, interesting. It was always like, I don't know, like I was pretty surprised I got to work on Aggretsuko. It definitely felt, I guess, kind of Sonic adjacent. It's very much like a cartoon animals and anime and stuff like that. But it was an interesting experience. I don't know, at that point I was just I wasn't even like entertaining the possibility of me writing for a Sonic thing. I wasn't even thinking about it. It was something I always wanted to do, but I'm like, oh, that's like, that might not happen, or it's going to be super far away, So I was just focusing in on Aggretsuko and trying to do my best at that. And it was really cool. There's actually a funny story. I think I've told this before with Aggretsuko. So I started writing it in November, like I said, and I wrote that first issue because they let us do the first issue that launched it in February. And so I don't know if you've read it, but it's about like everyone getting sick at work, and it's like a zombie apocalypse parody. And they work at a company called the Carrier Man Trading Company. And I was like, oh, I like Resident Evil, so we'll kind of parody that. And they'll come down with a virus called the C virus. And then the comic came out in February, like right when the coronavirus happened.
I thought that was like a conscious choice when I was reading it. Like,
no, I wrote it in November, man. Everyone thought I was making a joke. I'm like, bro, I wrote this like 3 months ago. It was so creepy. It like comic came out like right when it was happening.
Oh, I feel so bad for you.
Yeah, it was pretty foul.
Like I was interpreting it as like a very much like stay home type message.
Oh, no way. I was just like, let's make a funny Resident Evil 28 Days Later parody with Aggretsuko, because that was kind of my approach with Aggretsuko, was that like there's the Netflix show, and that was kind of the main thing driving the canon. And so I was like, well, I can't really advance the characters anywhere. Let me do like the equivalent of like Goku and Piccolo learning how to drive in Dragon Ball Z, right? Let me just do really fun genre-based filler episodes. And so the first one was a zombie one, and the second one was a kind of a sports anime one. And I just wanted to do a zombie thing, and that just happened to come out at the same time as the coronavirus starting. So,
God. So there's a question, thing that I was wondering about, and I was debating saying when I was recording the original TikTok about Scrapnik Island, but I was like, I don't know if this is of me just connecting things. But in issue 170 and issue 185 of the Archie comics, there's an island called the Island of Misfit Badniks, which has its own broken down Badniks and resident Sonic copy. Did you were thinking about that at all? Like linking, because I know Sega's everything is canon stuff. So I'm wondering if you were thinking about that at all.
it's really funny. I had no idea that story existed when I came up with Scrapnik, and then I shared it with the IDW folks, and we've been talking about it. And they were like, "Yeah, you accidentally recreated something that Archie did already, but better." And then they showed it to me, and I'm like, "Oh wow, this is the same idea." But no, I had no idea that story existed. It's completely by accident. I just came to the same conclusion somehow.
I mean, it is I thought it was you taking an idea that because I thought the same thing, that it was an idea that Archie put out and then didn't expand on at all, and then you were like, "Oh, make it good."
Yeah, no, it's really funny how that worked out. Yeah, it was a complete. I think one of the names I was actually gonna call the miniseries at one point was the Island of Forgotten Badniks. I just had no idea there was another story that already did that. On the Archie comics. Um, which is funny because you said it was an issue 175.
170 is its first appearance, and then 185.
That's crazy. I must have just completely skipped that back issue because I've read everything from 160 to the end of Archie. So I must have. I think I just saw the back issue and saw the backstory and saw that it wasn't Ian, and so I was like, oh, I'll just skip this story because I had no idea it existed.
Yeah, there are
That's
B
crazy.
stories and stuff, so they aren't like the main thing at all.
I've had people like speculate, oh yeah, they're trying to like they're trying to make like a IDW version of Shard the Metal Sonic, and it's like I love Shard, but I just wanted to make him. I just wanted to put Mecha Sonic in the story. It had nothing to do with him. So
And another question, one more question, and I know it might not be one you can answer yet.
sure,
Can we expect any more collaborations between you and IDW in the future, whether that be on Sonic or a different title?
I hope so. I don't know yet. They haven't approached me for anything. I guess we'll see how this goes. But I would love to working with them. I think working with IDW and Sega has been like my best professional creative experience so far. So I love everyone there. We seem to really gel well. So here's hoping. I'm hoping this book sells well. I hope people like it a lot, and I hope it leads to me writing a bunch more Sonic stuff because yeah, it's been a blast.
And besides Sonic, is there any like IPs that they have that you're like interested in tackling?
Oh man, I wanted to write Transformers, but they don't. They're losing Transformers, so I can't. It's going to a different publisher. They have Transformers. Um, Ninja Turtles would be cool. I feel like I have to like get used to the IDW canon for Ninja Turtles because I haven't read any of their Ninja Turtles comics specifically, but I like the Ninja Turtles a lot. What else do they have?
I think they
Magic the
still.
Gathering is cool. I like Magic the Gathering.
I think they have Dungeon and Dragons and other Hasbro stuff I can think of is they have My Little Pony on top of it.
Oh man, I D&D would be really cool if I got to kind of just do my own thing with it and I didn't have to adhere to somebody else's story. Like I'd want to do something that's like the Capcom '90s beat 'em up D&D, something that's like that, something that's really weeby and anime esque. Because of course, because I'm me. But D&D is really cool because it's just kind of this catch-all fantasy setting, and you can just kind of insert whatever you want into it. So
Thank you so much for coming by for an interview on this. It was really cool to talk to you.
yeah, same here. No, thanks for reaching out. It's been cool. I love your TikTok videos. You seem like a really cool dude. It's an honor. I hope you guys like the comic. The first issue comes out like in a month. It's killing me. God, it's killing me. Uh, the weight is killing me. Like I want everybody want to be able to read this. I think it's really gonna blow some people's minds at how cool this is. Like it's so different from like normal Sonic stories in a good way. I think, man.
I'm excited by the virtue of it being released around October, and it's been called like more of like a kind of like a scarier horror like elements story, which I'm super into.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting. Like they literally they asked like right after they approached me to pitch for the annual. I got done doing that, and like a week later, they're like, hey, we have a slot open for a mini series. Would you like to pitch for that? And I was like, oh shit. And they're like, we need something in the fall area. And I was like, okay, how about we do like a Halloween special then? And then I pitched that, and it worked out. So we're getting kind of a Halloween episode for Sonic, which is really cool.
And I'm super looking forward to it. I'm definitely the way I cover new stuff is that I want people to buy the book. So I'm sure you've seen it that I'm very vague when I talk about new stuff. It's like this is really good. This is a really cool thing. Read it. So and then I wait like a month before I talk about the contents of the issue when there's like other stuff to buy from the same series because I like to make sure people buy the comics.
Yeah,
Um,
sure thing. No, I appreciate that. That's really cool.
um, but I am super looking forward to both getting to talk about it because just everything about the concept I've heard is like super engaging to me. Um,
Yeah, man, it's super fun. It's really creepy. It's really emotional. Natalie's colors. You guys are not ready for the work she's doing in this book. Jack too. This is I don't want to oversell this too much, but I will say, as someone who's read his fair share of Sonic comics. I don't think there's quite been a Sonic book that has looked like this one, just visually. Like the artwork is the colors and the art is insane in this book. It's so bonkers.
That's actually like super appealing again to me specifically because I talked about Big's Big Adventure from the 2020 annual.
Oh yeah, I love that story.
Like the colors on that, like the really unique coloring style is something that I really love about that. And the way you're talking about makes it sound like we're going to get a unique coloring style spread across 4 issues rather than like one story. So that's super cool to me.
It's very much like the way it's someone described it in the chat, and I kind of agree with them. Was that this feels like an OVA episode, like an OVA, like there's an anime, and then they'll get like a special that's kind of like its own little side story, but there's like extra like a bunch of work put into it, and it has a lot of time to really cook, like almost like a Shonen Jump movie. Kind of like that. That's what this feels like. It's like it's side story that's just really like focused and really like intense, and the art is just popping more so than even usual, and it's awesome.
I'm super excited for it. I guess that kind of just makes me want to ask one more question. This I'm so hoping this isn't spoilers at all. Timeline placement, is it like kind of like right when it comes out, or is it going to be set like a little bit before or a little bit after current arc? Because I know a lot of stuff's happening in arc right now.
I think I can say this because I think I saw Evan talking about it, because somebody, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, somebody asked Evan, when does future growth take place in the annual, the garden one with SBO and Silver. And so she said that takes place between, I want to say, issues 56 and 57. So there's a current arc going on where it's the fallout of issue 50. And then there's a little bit of a skip between 56 and 57, which is where that story takes place, she said. And I am pretty sure Scrapnik Island takes place in that gap of time of a few weeks. Do not quote me on that, though. I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to put out misinformation, but I think that's where it goes.
Hey, that also just makes me super excited for all the books. Like, I'm wondering what the time skip's gonna be. I'm sorry, yeah. I just like these comics a lot, so I'm kind of.
Oh no, seriously, I get it. I think it's just I don't expect like a really huge like, oh man, like it's just kind of, I think it's like a few weeks of people chilling, and there's a like space to breathe between those arcs, and that's where mine's gonna slip in, like right there, I think. So
yeah.
Really exciting time to be a Sonic fan. Really exciting time. Frontiers, I unironically think it looks amazing now. They released that initial footage, and I was like, here we go again. Oh man, Sonic. And then everything I've seen from it looks amazing. I'm on board the hype train for Sonic Frontiers. I'm excited for Prime. I love the movie. I'm getting to work on a comic. It's a very good year to love Sonic, I think.
Definitely, I feel much the same way. I know I was much more forgiving of Frontiers, like near the beginning. Like I was like, well, we haven't played it yet. Like that's what's my thing. But now I'm very much like the super excited about it.
Yeah, I'm like 30, and I'm just like like I said, I've been in the Sonic my whole life, so I've seen the ebbs and flows, and I've kind of like I've closed my heart off in a little wall so it doesn't get hurt anymore. So I'm always just like a little bit cynical, but I love being proven wrong, and I think I'm going to be proven wrong with this one because Mania Forces burnt me so badly. I was like, oh my god, Sonic Forces.
Yeah, I totally get it because I bought an Xbox 360 for Sonic 06.
Oh man,
so that was like the reason.
No, so, yeah, Sonic 06 was my first heartbreak, I think, when it came to Sonic, because at that point I was still young enough. And I was fine with Shadow the Hedgehog. I was fine with Sonic Heroes. 06 was the one where I hit a brick wall, and I was just like, oh my god, this is a really bad game.
Yeah. And Forces, I'm like one of like the 3 people on the internet who has like a softer opinion of Forces, where I'm like, it's
Forces is playable.
Yeah, it's got fundamental issues. And like the Infinite is the shape of something interesting. Although I think
his theme song is awesome. His design is awesome. I love everything about Infinite except his writing.
yeah, really the thing that makes Infinite like a good villain at all is the backstory that Ian Flynn wrote in that for
Oh
the
my
spin-off
god,
comic.
yeah, the Jackal team. Oh my god.
And then just
I
the
want- I wanna
implication
see
that
more of
Shadow
them.
murdered all of them in his episode.
Oh my goodness, man. There's so much potential there.
I always describe Infinite as having Broly syndrome, like original, where it's like, oh, this is really cool idea, they're just not doing anything with it.
hmm Can't even say that anymore because they've now made Broly cool.
Yeah,
So they actually fixed him.
that's why I'm
But
hoping someone gets at some point Sega lets them do Infinite in the comics. It's like maybe
oh
they'll
man,
fix him.
I would love to. I mean, they fixed Zavik in the comics. If you can fix Zavik, then if you can make the Deadly Six like pretty interesting, then I think like anything is possible. I really do not like the Deadly Six, and I like them in the IDW comics. So Ian and Evan are always working miracles when it comes to that stuff.
So I think that was pretty much all the questions I had. It was great talking to you again. Super excited for Scrapnik Island and hopefully more stuff after that if it sells well, or you getting to write on some of their other IPs too.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you all so much for watching. Sonic the Hedgehog Scrapnik Island drops October 19th. If you're looking to get a physical copy, see if you can pre-order a copy at your local comic book store. If you don't have a local comic book store, or you're looking to buy digital, you will be able to buy it right from IDW's website, idwpublishing.com. Also, if you're looking to keep up with what Daniel Barnes is doing, you can follow him over at @Danny8bit on twitter.com. If you want to keep up with what I'm doing, you can follow me at @HumbleSquid on Twitter or HSquidReviews on TikTok. Shout out to my lovely patrons, Tentacle Teapot, AJ Wigglesworth, and Cody. If you want to support what I'm doing and want your name in the credits, consider becoming my patron over at patreon.com/hsquid. Thanks for watching.